I think that was a perfect introduction. Thank you, Dennett. I'm sure this microphone is kind of going a little bit now. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening. My name is Victora Miles, and I'm the Rebecca and Jacqueline curator and artist award manager for the Current Artist Award. Tonight, I have here with me the absolutely lovely Colescott family. If you could give them a round of applause. So I have with me here Cooper Colescott, Dennett Colescott, and Colescott. And I will let you all briefly introduce yourselves to our local guests tonight.
I'm Cooper Colescott. I'm our dad's youngest son, and I'm here tonight with my brothers to talk to you guys about this one. I'm also, along with my brother Alex, we're trustees for our father's estate, so we take care of the artwork and the legacy and trying to move things forward from where he left off. And all of us take care of everything as best we can.
Hi, Cooper. I'm Dennett. I'm one of the middle kids and spent a lot of time traveling overseas with those times in Egypt and France. We learned so much from our father in so many ways, and we're here to celebrate his accomplishment and his vision. I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
And I'm Alex Colescott, and if you couldn't tell, I'm the eldest. And Cooper's actually just about half my age. It's pretty remarkable. Dad had 5 boys. There's 4 of us left.
Different mom.
Yeah, well, the 4 of us, yeah, we all have different mothers. He was married more than a couple of times. We call it, in the family, we call it the curse. Some of us are afflicted, thankfully, Cooper and Dennett are not. So that's, yeah. Well, I grew up with Dad in the 50s and 60s, which is like a really totally different perspective than what these guys experienced. Dad was not fresh out of the Army, but he had been a combat veteran in World War II, and was, I think, more strict with me than these guys. And just you know, he had that deal going on. So, and so here we are. We're going to share our experiences and our adventures with our father. So, and which were extraordinary. And he was an extraordinary man. We are his biggest fans.
So this exhibition traces the different stylistic transformations of your father's artistic career throughout his 60-plus year career. And you guys kind of just touched on it, but I'm wondering if you could each share about the eras of work you grew up with and what you're most familiar with.
We'll pass it to Alex first.
Why? My experiences with that? Well, when the show opened here, I shared a story, and I won't share it tonight because I could hear people's eyeballs when they clapped back in their head, when they rolled their eyes, so I won't do that. But Dad was fearless. He, well, for example, when I was probably 7 or 8, our brother Nicky, who has passed away, he was a couple of years younger. My mother sewed clothes for some of the wealthier people in dresses and gowns for people in Portland, Oregon. And she would get tickets to the symphony opening and to the opera opening. And Dad loved the symphony, not so much a fan of the opera thing. And I remember this one time Dad came home with a couple packages under his arms and went upstairs, and rented a tuxedo, you know, the tails, tuxedo coat and jacket, and a lion's tail, a fake lion's tail that went underneath the thing. And then he went out in the backyard and clipped the hair off our Kerry Blue Terrier and glued it to his throat and neck and to the back of his hands and arms. And that's how he went to the opening of opera season in Portland, Oregon.
All right.
That was mine, right? And I remember he was focused. He knew where he was going. He knew where he wanted to be. He was energetic in his approach. If he couldn't afford a studio, he would build one in the house we were in. And I remember in Seattle, he built a studio under the house. We lived up on Queen Anne's Hill in this little shoebox of a house, and he put windows in, poured the concrete himself, did all that stuff. And in Portland, he finished off the attic and built a studio up there. And he was always, and he had fans. Arlene Schnitzer was a huge fan of his and helped him in his career quite a bit. And I remember coming home from grade school. I don't know what year it was because that's a long time ago, but I came home and Vincent Price, I don't know if you all know who Vincent Price is, but Vincent Price is sitting in my living room. You know, The Pit and the Pendulum and all those horror movies. He was an art collector. So I mean, those are the kind of memories I have of Dad. And he and I were drinking buddies back when he lived in Oakland, and we would hang out and drink bourbon and eat salted peanuts, right? And we had a great time. And he was, you know, it's a remarkable journey that he took. He was, like I said, fearless, adventurous, and he knew exactly where he was going. We were driving out on the west slope of outside of Portland when my brother Nicky and I were little kids, and the sun was starting to set, and the sky was kind of purple and gray, and he pulled this old I think it was a 57 Ford four-door over on the side of the road, and he got us out of the car, and he says, "You see that sky?" Yeah. One of it was, he says, "That's a Colescott sky." And he knew, right? So those are some of my earlier experiences.
Thanks. Alex, now was there a question about stylistic changes or what was it? So when I walk in the room here, I see so much of that, the stylistic changes, transformations, and particularly the one behind us, that it was from a time way after, you know, I grew up watching him paint Beaver Valley, and I knew that woman. Her name was Beverly, and she was another artist's girlfriend, and her nickname was Beaver, so there she is. So seeing the transformation from those times in Egypt and France, and then at the time in Oakland, East 14th Street, Oakland. And then I guess the one behind me is during your time, Cooper, in Tucson. It was pretty amazing. To this day, I come in here and I see pieces I've never seen before. And he was busy. He was always producing. A lot of humor. As a kid growing up around these pieces, there was so much humor in his work. And it's more than, there's always a message, and it's more than a pretty picture. I'm so glad I was able to see. I could tell a story a little bit about East 14th Street in Oakland. We had the 3 storefronts, started out with just one, and those beautiful big windows, and he covered them in tissue paper and glued it on there, and it was a perfect light. And the wooden old pine or fir floors painted gray. It was a perfect studio location for these painters. I'm glad I got to see them paint.
And so it's great to hear all the stories that my brothers tell, because it's such an interesting, different time for our dad. Every time I hear a story, I'm like, I didn't know that about Dad. For me, it was more easygoing. He and my mom moved to Tucson, Arizona from California when he got the job at the University of Arizona. He was a professor there. He retired there when I was really young, so I got retired grandpa dad. And so we pretty much would just hang out in the studio all the time. We would paint and draw together. He was just painting. I mean, he painted like a madman. I mean, he was painting consecutive paintings. Every month he'd probably be done with 2 or 3. Keep going, and he just kept going and going and going. I mean, I think that was how it was throughout his entire career too. Even when he was teaching and taking care of family and everything, he was just painting. When we moved, when he and my mom moved to Tucson, I was born there. Our dad and my mom built a house out in the desert, and it was the studio. And it was basically just a giant art studio. My mom was also an artist, so she had her studio. He had his studio. He had a loft in the studio where they slept, and there's one little bedroom where I slept in the whole house. That's where I got to see it all happen. This painting here is when he was getting a lot older. He was suffering from Parkinson's disease. He was having a lot of hallucinations. He was not doing well at all. But as he continued painting, I mean, there's figures and there's faces and there's a lot going on in these paintings. We have a few of these, but it's a little bit different. You can kind of tell where he was in his life. And then like what Dennett and Alex were talking about with the different eras of his timeline with the different paintings, you can see the changes and you can see the growth in his life. His life is within all of these pieces of artwork. So it's pretty incredible to have this wonderful collection of works here at the TAM Art Museum and the wonderful people that have been helping us do this show, and you guys are really great. And we're really excited to be here and talk about it. I mean, this is really incredible. And our experiences with our dad, like Alex was saying, it's just who we are. He raised us, and he was just the best dad. He was the funniest guy. His humor comes through in his artwork, but he just was always there to say a funny pun or whatever it might be.
I'd love to ask you about travel, because your dad was very well traveled. I'm so curious how much travel has impacted you and your understanding of the world. And so I'm also curious what your favorite places to travel are, or do you feel most at home?
Pass it down to you again, Alex.
My parents got divorced when I was 11 or 12, and subsequently I lived with my mom, a very white woman from Prague, Czechoslovakia. So my experience with the travel thing was kind of limited. Dad wound up going to Egypt in the 60s. And I remember it was his birthday and he was in Rome. And so I called the hotel to wish him a happy birthday. And for whatever reason, I don't know what it is in my psyche, but when I'm talking to somebody with an accent, I start assuming the accent. and there I am in the living room. My wife is standing next to me, and I'm speaking with an Italian accent. She's falling out. And the guy, the desk clerk at the hotel, he's laughing his ass off. I think what Dad imbued in me, I can't speak for these guys, but I'm guessing it's true for them. But I think what Dad set us up for was being independent and doing what we want to do in life. And so I've traveled extensively since then. And My favorite city on the planet is New York City. London comes in a second. Barcelona comes in third, probably. So I've been a lot of different places. I've had some crazy adventures. Spent some time in Thailand. And, you know, but always in contact with Dad and making that connection and, you know, breakups, mistakes, you know, life in general, and Dad would always just laugh at me or laugh with me, you know, and I think he just understood. And one thing I know for sure, Dad felt at home wherever he was, and he lived a lot of different places, as you said. You know, Dennett experienced, I think, the most extensive travel with him. Dennett was in Cairo with him, and he was in Cairo when they got the boot, during the 6-Day War with Israel, and they left with
Not much.
not much, which is a good segue.
Yeah, I was born in Portland, Oregon. By the time I was 1 year old, we had moved to Cairo, and Robert had got a teaching job there at the American University. And, he had a grant to study art history, and that's a great place to study art history. I was very young, but I have many memories of that time. The 6-Day War came about. We saw the preparations. We were coming back from a picnic at the Red Sea, and the sun was going down, and we could see the anti-aircraft weapons on the beach. And I asked him, I said, "Papa, is there going to be a war?" And he said, "Yes, it looks like there might be." And it wasn't but a few days later we were out of there. He got us the last boat ticket out of Egypt. We packed up some trunks and put our little Volkswagen Beetle on the deck of the ship. And I think literally he went to the ticket booth and put his foot in the door as they were closing, and we got those tickets. And he was not going to take a chance to have us in the war. He had already had that experience in the Second World War. He got us out of there. We went to Italy. His brother Warrington and family, some of the cousins are here tonight. We went and stayed with them in Rome for a short time, and then Robert got a teaching job in Paris. So we moved to Paris for a few years. Those were really wonderful, formative times, learning different languages and going to different schools. So the travel had a huge impact on my life. And even after my folks split up when I was about 8 years old, we had moved to San Francisco by then. But I would still go back and spend summers with Robert Colescott in the south of France. And we talk about how he was painting all the time, but I know those times when we were vacationing there, he must have just been deep in thought because he wasn't painting. And so, or if he was, it was kind of minimal time for him. So we had a lot of, my travels were so extensive as a kid. We went all over around North Africa and Europe, and it seemed like it was never a solid home. So once I landed in the Bay Area, and my mother had asked me where I wanted to live, I said, "Oh, outside the country." So within a year, we were living in Santa Fe, California, where I am now. I thought, "Oh, finally home. Maybe this is home now. I'll stay here." And I'm still there, but I do enjoy traveling to this day. Glad to be traveling up here.
Yeah. Dad, when I was pretty young, he would tell me about all the stories, traveling and all the places he would go and the friends he made along the way. And he always told me, "Hey, we'll go to Paris. I'll take you to Paris." Like, "Okay, yeah, whatever you say, Dad." And I think he took it a little bit of a challenge because he started taking me to Paris every summer, and we would go visit his friends that he would be visiting with back when he was there with Dennett. And actually, Dennett and I were talking about it just recently, and we realized that the friends that he was hanging out with when he was a little kid, I was hanging out with their kids when I was there. And so it was kind of mind-blowing because I'm like, oh wait, that's my friend's mom that you were hanging out with back then. And so it just kind of put all this crazy experiences into perspective. And one really important and significant time in my travels with Dad was we went to Paris, and that was in '97. One of our trips was the time when he was being represented as the first African American to represent America at the Venice Biennale, which is really significant for him and for all of us here. And I was able to go with him. So we went to Paris, and then we took the train. It was like an overnight train to Venice. And I remember getting out of the train station and then stepping into a boat. And all of a sudden we're in boat taxis and, driving around. I was probably 11 years old, so this is just such an incredible experience. And these walkways and the architecture and everything. So that was really incredible. I remember the pavilion there that hosted the show and all the artwork. And I was realizing as I was walking through the show that all these paintings were the ones that he had been working on for the past year or however long, and to see all these works and everything that he had been working on there was really incredible. And then I'm hoping to take my kids for trips like that as well. We've been going trips to New York, and hopefully we can go overseas sometime in the near future. But like Alex said too, New York is what a great city to visit and walk and see everything. So that's good experiences there.
And the thing with so much of his artwork reflects those travels. It's not just about how we got to travel with him and have those experiences, but he was there, always working, always thinking, and always planning. But so when I see these pieces, I can see little bits of it. And this one is so fascinating because of the time of his life when his mind was changing, and yet all those experiences are also in that painting.
And speaking of that too, this painting that is part of the Tacoma Art Museum collection, all the way back there, is a really significant part of his career and his life. Where when I think it's in the '60s when he did travel to Egypt. Before that, in Portland, a lot of his artwork was a little bit grayer, a little bit less vibrant, less colorful. This is when all of the figures started changing, the colors, the content, and it had so much to do with his experience there in Egypt, which is a really transformative time for him. Which is what a great piece.
I feel like you touched on this, but I'm wondering if we can touch on it a little bit more. It sounds like you spent time with your dad while he was creating, and I'm so curious how that shaped your relationship, but what it was like being, if you were in the studio with him while he was creating, what that kind of looked like, or wherever he was creating, what did that look like? What did that feel like?
I can't draw a stick figure on a bet. My artistic talents lay in a different direction. I've been a musician, played professionally. I've been on the road with a variety of people, had a great time. And I think I watched it. I'd go up to the studio and I'd hang out, and watch him work. And it was, what I really remember was the focus that he had, and he just seemed to create out of paint, a brush, and some canvas or paper, something the talent came through and something happened. Something remarkable happened. And Cooper and I particularly have experienced in the last so many years the discovery of Dad's art. The collection is pretty extensive, and we have a huge collection of works on paper. And every time we open a flat file and we're going through stuff, the reality of what we're looking at is it hits you in the head, right? It really hits you in the head, and it hits you more in the heart than anything. And we have some work that is just entirely remarkable. We see things that have never been seen in public. And I think that's part of our mission, is to create situations where these things can be seen. And I'm gonna bring up our family dynamic when I was a kid. I think it's really important. I grew up knowing my grandparents. They had immigrated from New Orleans in 1919, made their way to Oakland, California.
Lydia and Warrington.
What's that?
Lydia
and Warrington, yeah, Warrington Senior. And I think at the direction of my grandmother, our family decided to pass as white. They were light-skinned, they moved to Oakland, they moved to a neighborhood where the covenant was, written in paper, written in stone, that they didn't belong there, and yet they did. And Dad was fairly dark in his complexion and the way he looked. And
relative to his brother.
yeah, and Warrington Jr., our cousins back here, whose father that is, he looked like me. I looked like a Bavarian accordion player. And, but what that did for a period of time, what that did is separated our family from each other. Our cousins, Myrna and Lauren and Neil. Neil looks like Black Tom Selleck. My wife, every time she saw him, she followed. So, I said that wrong, excuse me. She swooned, how's that? But so here we were separated, from a really vibrant, special part of our family for a period of time. And when Dad traveled to Egypt and was in a culture of, he was surrounded by people of color.
And fit right in.
Yeah, he fit right in. He felt at home. And so I remember when he got back to Portland, and he sat me down in the living room. My mom was elsewhere at the time, and he sat down. And in the vernacular of the times, he said, we're Negroes. And I already knew that. I was getting beat up on a regular basis in school. So, but here I, different time, different era, and you can tell how much that release, that sense of freedom and knowing where you're from impacted his art and how he performed his art. And it's an American story. This is not unique to our family by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it's a real important story that needs to be told. And that's kind of why I'm going there right now. Dad opened my eyes. He really opened my eyes and created an alternate vision as to what I've been living with for such a long time. Being raised by a white woman, living in a white neighborhood, going to predominantly white school, and he gave me the gift of finally knowing who the hell I am. Whose family is so important too. It's a space that you can't really know until you live it. And I'm so grateful for him to to bring me into that zone. I don't know. It's a great place to be. I've become real close to my cousins in Oakland. I've become, we're family now, and that's kind of the gift. You know, the family aspect is so important for me, and I can't speak for anybody else in this regard. But all of us, yeah, absolutely, and it's like coming home. It really is. And, you know, I sound dramatic here, overwrought. Maybe I don't want to be, but I can't express how much that had to impact Dad's life growing up. You know, our grandmother told Warrington Jr. and my dad, basically, this is through a guy that's been writing Dad's biography, Matthew Wesley in New York. And what my grandmother told Warrington and Dad was, you can't get, and this is way back in the day, you can't get ahead being who you are. You have to, as black people, you can't get ahead in this country. And so that's the life they led until Dad decided he wanted to be who he was. So, pretty cool, I think. I've said my piece.
What was
Did you spend time with your dad while he was creating?
Yes.
Oh,
In Oakland, I watched him paint quite a bit. And when that paintbrush wasn't touching canvas, he was deep in thought. You know, he had a lot was going on. A lot happened for him to put that paint on the canvas. It was in his head. And I use some of that technique in my pursuits. I do something basic like restore furniture and fix antiques, and sometimes I get real creative with it. But my process is the same way. I have to think about it a lot before I really get it moving or get it done. And I think I've learned that from him. Sometimes it feels like a bit of a block, but I know that when I do get to it, it's going to be done right. Watching him work was just a way of life. You know, it makes it acrylic paint on a sheet of glass, and eventually it was this big, colorful melange. And it was a neat thing when he would decide it was time to clean it. He would peel off this big sheet of acrylic color, and then on the other side it would feel smooth from the glass. And it was so colorful, these colorful swirls. And then his can with brushes, you know, the can here with the brushes, and that's very minimal. He would have 50 brushes in there, and they were all worn down to a certain degree from scratching on the canvas. And he did a lot of that. You hear the brush on the canvas, like sandpaper almost. And, he did a lot with layering of colors. At some point, he started playing with the red backgrounds. And before that, I think he just started with the white base, the white gesso on the canvas. He built his own stretchers most of the time. And I think he would also get some college students to help build stretchers. It was, watching him work I was learning a lot. I was absorbing it. I'm so grateful I did.
And I have similar experiences with the glass and the paint. You know, the whole table, he had this huge table covered in paints and brushes and cans and this glass sheets with all the different colors he was always mixing. And sometimes he would take the can lid from the coffee cans and mix on the coffee lid. And, you know, when I was growing up, like Dennett was saying, transitioning from that white background into the red background, like this one, you can actually see in this painting, the Persephone, there's not a lot of red showing through, and this is early 90s here, so this is when he was using it as a base. You can see little things kind of popping through, like some of the lips and some of the like little bottom right corner, there's a little red sticking through that he would kind of use as part of the painting, the background. Even this work on paper, El Diablo, the guy here in the middle, and there's a little bit of red. Some of these works on paper, he would start with the red. And then with these larger paintings, he would work with his chalk, and he would just chalk stuff out. He would do the red base, and earlier in his work, he was doing a lot more study, a lot more work off of planning and figuring out what he was going to do. But later, it was so loose and so abstract to the point where he was like seeing the images in the paint and just kind of bringing it together. And as those ideas start to come together, he would put narrative to it and bring it to life to what it actually became. And so this one, you can get a little idea because there's still a little bit of chalk mark like up in the corners and stuff like that. But and a lot over here actually. This, of course, was really late in his life, but when he was still there, he was really bringing these characters together, and it was becoming more and more red. The red background became more of the painting, as opposed to like here, where the red background is there, but it's you wouldn't know it if you didn't see it. And so there's a lot of works in the late 90s where it almost engulfs the whole painting and takes over. And those are the ones that I recognize. And so when we start looking at all the works from the past, it's like, well, what are all these paintings? And then there's these works that he had hung in our house. I didn't even know he had painted from the 40s and 50s that I just had no idea. This was one of your paintings? And it was so shocking to me because I was in this part of his life where he was a different artist than he was back then. And I think what you were talking about, Alex, is so important to the story. When he fought in World War II, he and his brother, Warrington, both fought in the White Army when it was segregated. They both went to school on the GI Bill, which I believe wasn't available for the black soldiers. So it really just is this incredible story, this incredible path that they were both on. They both became very accomplished artists, both educators, and their Warrington's children are here. And we actually, today is the first time we met in person. Kind of came together as this like separated family who were able to kind of come together and become more of a family again for the first time, which is really special to us, and especially surrounding this wonderful shed and brothers and family.
Your father had such a great sense of humor, and it really does show out in many of his works. And I'm so curious if his humor influenced, if you saw that kind of humor in his parenting style, and the way that you can navigate the world. Do you feel like you carry the same kind of humor and similarity in life?
My kids would say yes, for sure.
Yes.
His comedy and how it influenced us.
Oh, yeah.
His sense of humor.
He loved to make people groan. He'd tell these stupid puns and
Shaggy dog story.
shaggy dog story. He would take my brother Nicky and our brother Nicky and I to Marx Brothers film festivals, and that would crack him up. big into that. Yeah, it's, I mean, you can just, you look at Beaver Valley, I mean, that thing is, where was his mind at that point in time? But and there's so many things like that. It was in,
Like the 1970s, then? That's the 70s.
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And you can see the 70s there, the whole
There are a lot of differences in
style.
Beaver Valley, like you said.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, his sense of humor. I grew up, well, some years ago when Dad was still, you know, he was very together, and it was before his Parkinson's diagnosis. He sat me down and he goes, you know, you were a strange kid. You turned out okay for such a damn strange kid. So, then he'd laugh. But life with it was just an adventure. I'm approaching 75, so all my memories are not as clear as they once were, you know. But I remember, you know, I remember Dad's smile more than anything. He's got that mouthful of perfect white teeth. I don't think he ever had a cat. He told me that. Maybe he made that up too. I don't know.
We had a bridge.
Oh, he had a bridge? Well, he never told me. But I mean, I remember that grin, that big, perfect smile. And when I think of Dad, there's a photograph in my phone of Dad and Wynton Marsalis, the jazz trumpeter. And Wynton Marsalis has this sly look on his face, and Dad just got he's proud. So, yes, he was a funny guy.
Yeah, there were some funny times. You know, if there was an event or a party, he wanted to rouse people up a bit, make some laughter going. So
Like the dance.
He would do a dance. Or if there was a drum kit, he would get there and do a drum solo. She was always thinking about how to have a good time and entertain people. Sense of humor. I was going to say something, I slipped my mind.
Okay, sounds good. You know, talking about his teeth, Alex, he always talked about our grandmother, Lydia, and our cousin Lydia is also here, who's named after her. But he always talked about Lydia's teeth because they were always really perfect. He was always like, oh, you have Lydia's teeth. They're unbreakable, and, you know, so anyways, we can go off different tangents about what Dad used to talk about and all the jokes, but that's all I got.
And you guys touched on this earlier, but as I understand, you're all artists, whether it's visual, performing. Can you share your artistic interests and what you get into?
So I'm getting an echo.
Your artistic interests.
You're
Well, to this day, I take guitar lessons, just so I can keep my chops up and get better. That's huge for me. I've got a small collection of jazz work, and it's really different than what he did later on in the world. I found these pieces in our brother Nicky's.
sometimes he plays a tuba and the bass on the unicycle, and that's really something. So look up Colescott group, and he's very
With
entertaining.
his brother on his shoulder.
And then there's only the brother on the shoulder, yeah. So they're busy, but music has always been important in the Colescott family, and as you can see, there's a video there where he's playing some drums, and when I look at old Roman furniture, it looks very modern to me, and I'm sure in his day it was. So I created a piece on an old oak chair, and I made the finish look like stone, old glass, and metal. So that those elements were in the finish, so it has iridescence to it, and that was my modern art involving furniture. I still work on furniture to this day. Not always creative pieces like that, but when I do get a chance to do that, I enjoy it.
Your turn.
Thanks, Alex. One of my favorite experiences growing up actually was looking at Dennett's drawings when I was a kid, and I would look through the big pile of cars he would draw and spaceships and different scenes, and so that was always really cool to me. My kids are musicians as well, or well, learning to be. They're playing piano and they're in band in school and everything. And so I think the music thing was really important to our dad. It was important to our grandparents. One thing about myself, as an artist, I'm a painter as well, or at least aspiring to be one. I'm going back to school for my BFA right now, which is really weird, going back to school in my late 30s. And I think my dad was a bad influence on me with painting, because I keep my art teachers sort of like, what are you doing? No, you can't, no, all this stuff. I'm like, what if I do this? It's just way off base. But it's a lot of fun, and it comes together, so that's always fun. You know, our dad, being the person he was, I think it really translates into everything we do, art or parenting or anything. So I think in life in general. So I just have a lot of fun with those memories, and I just try to keep it going forward. My great-grandfather on my mom's side was a painter, and so when my grandmother passed away, my mom and my aunt were kind of saddled with all the artwork that she was taking care of, and now they're just passing it my way, so I'm helping them try to figure that out, which is kind of fun and interesting. And my mom's an artist, so I try to save her paintings. She was always really destructive about her paintings. She would always destroy them and get frustrated, and I've been like saving them and hanging up her paintings in my house. And yeah, here we go.
Robert was always a very kind and gentle and thoughtful person, very generous with his emotions, and he was always learning. He was very open-minded in most ways. I think we've all benefited from that. Our children also, it helps keep our family dynamic pretty tight.
It's actually such a perfect segue. I really admire the way the three of you come together and your sibling dynamic. I think it's so rad. And I'm so curious if you could share about that with us, because,
Yeah, sure. Well, Cooper is like my son. Literally. And I'm almost old enough to be his grandfather. Dennett is one of the kindest, most gentle men I know. He reminds me of our brother Nicky, who never really had a whole lot in the way of monetary stuff. He gave everything away. He literally did. People were in need. My brother Nicky, our brother Nicky, I keep saying my brother, he's my full brother Nicky, but he's our brother. He gave stuff away. He just did. You know, he was just that way. He worked in a hardware store for most of his life. he was the guy that took the receipts to the bank, and the guy that owned the hardware store had these big parrots, and what, big parrots. It kind of bite your phone off. And he'd walk to the bank with the parrot, one parrot on his shoulder or another parrot, and bird shit on his vest. and everybody in the neighborhood absolutely adored him. I mean, he was like the king of Westmoreland, which is like a little sub-town in the city of Portland. And when he passed away, he was a devout guy. He was definitely a Christian. He was very devout. Myself, I go into church and my feet get hot for some reason. But so at his memorial, there were probably in this tiny little church in Westmoreland, there were probably 200 people stuffed into this place, and people came and played music and stood up and told stories, and just a remarkable guy. And I think we get that from our mothers as well, but we also get all that kind of stuff from Dad. Dad was, when he was teaching at the University of Arizona, I can't remember her name, she's a doctor of some sort or another, but she was the first black woman to be a professor at the University of Arizona, and Dad was wholly responsible for her getting that job, right? Yeah, but no fanfare, no recognition for that fact, but that's just who he was. He worked in behind the scenes to make that happen. So that's kind of our family dynamic. I love these guys to pieces. They're my family, There's nothing better than that. So.
Speaking of generosity, it's one thing my son had just came to mind. He organized a workers' union, employees union at the Berkeley School of Music in Boston. There was a union for the faculty, but not for the employees, for the workers. And he really helped make that happen. Without him, I don't think it would. In fact, he was responsible for making it happen. So it's kind of a generosity in our family to help people. You're on a blank right now.
That's okay. I think it probably helps that we all didn't grow up together. So we have I think it's great that we were able to see each other and know that we were brothers, but we had these different lives and different things going on. And after Dad passed away, we got together, and then we weren't together always, and then sometimes we are. But we always pick up right back where we left off. We're always just brothers, and we're just family. And it's so interesting because it's not like we have to try. It's not like we're awkward about anything. Maybe we all just have this one looming person over our lives that, in a good way, that is our common deal. Because we talk well. We were. Our dad definitely, he left an imprint on all of us, and so we're very, very close, even though we've been apart throughout our lives. So.
Beautiful. I'm trying to get emotional over here. So you all are really preserving your father's art and his legacy through managing the estate, but also through moments like this. And I really think that's such a huge undertaking. And it's a really important effort to keep those things alive, especially for African American artists. It's really hard, really hard. And so I'm just curious if you might be able to share a little bit about that inner working, those inner workings and what that looks like for you.
Once again,
about preserving Dad's legacy and moving forward.
well, Dad's legacies are our primary focus when we're dealing with the trust. The trust is pretty complicated. We've got way more lawyers than any human being should want to have or have at any point in time. But we're in a really good place. It's taken a lot of hard work to get where we've gotten. The learning curve was huge. It was really steep. We had to, I didn't know anything about art business or the art world or anything of that nature. My background is construction. I mean, that's what I settled into. I was a union carpenter for a number of years, and I got into management and did the project manager, superintendent thing. I had my own business, which I'm not the best businessman. But one thing with Cooper and I working together, I've come to rely on his instincts. He's got great instincts. He's got a way better memory than I do. He's got also technical skills that I would never have. I'm forever calling him up. How do I find this email? Seriously. And so we bring that all together. We bring it's a package deal. We bring that all together and we focus on Dad's legacy and moving forward and hopefully bringing the memory of our father to a point where he's even more recognized than he is now. There have been some shortfalls in what's gone on with Dad's stuff and him, and we're lucky. We have a sizable team right now, and they're focused on his legacy as well. We're going to have a show in New York.
November.
Thank you. And we've really worked our asses off to get to that point. It's been lately I've been slacking off a little bit, getting on my motorcycle and riding and doing stuff. But it's been more than a full-time job. It really has been. Life has sort of taken a back seat in a lot of ways. And Cooper's better at maintaining your separation. Because he's got kids, he's got responsibilities. I'm kind of footloose and hang out and do that stuff, but it's so I think a comprehensive story about Dad, you know, his early life as a black man who's passing as white, his all 5 of his marriages, 6 if you count no. but all of those factors, you know, there's an influence there. There's his legacy. We're his legacy in a way too, you know. And I think we have to represent ourselves as such and do the best we can to make it, you know, just do the best job we can in that regard. There's a lot of people around, particularly this guy that's writing. He doesn't call it a biography. I call it a biography. He calls it a monograph. He knows more about our family than any one person on the planet, including all 3 of us put together. Seriously, he knows all about what year Dad graduated high school, where he went to high school, what's going on. He's a huge resource in this thing. He really is. His name's Matthew West.
He has a big collection of paintings.
Yeah, his mother. He lives in a co-op in New York, 72nd and Lexington, And this thing is, I don't know how old the building is, they have the original plumbing in the bathroom, all the original fixtures. And his mother is about this tall, she lives there. She's 93, I think.
94 now.
Yeah, 94, her name's Lenore. And Lenore she's a retired physician. And we spent a lot of time in this apartment. And
That place is loaded with work.
exactly. And so we're all sitting around the dining room table, and Matthew's going on and on and on about his favorite subject, Dad. And Lenore stabs me on the elbow. She's sitting next to me. She goes, "You know, he's obsessed." In your exact words. And so, you know, that he's part of our team. You know, he's not on the payroll, thank goodness, but he's part of the team. And you know, I don't know what else to say. You know more about legacy than I will ever know. Oh, absolutely. And by the way, thank you for the wonderful job. It means like a huge amount to us.
Robert Colescott's work was relevant when he did it, but we've seen it over and over the years. His stories and what he represents on canvas, his artwork is always powerful. You know, we've seen it in recent years. So much of the same battles that have been fought over and over. It feels like it's a war that never ends. Struggle for equality and recognition, and he was always there.
Yeah, taking this legacy that he built in his lifetime, which is incredible, especially for a living artist to gain the recognition that he gained in his lifetime, and to be able to keep building on that. We're definitely not creating anything new by any means. We're just taking what he left and trying to push it forward and keep sharing with the world and keep partnering with people like the Tacoma Art Museum and trying to keep building on what he already had established, what he had already built for himself and for his family. And it's, like Alex said, it's a passion for us. We're really passionate about our dad. We're passionate about his artwork. We've taken this thing on, and it's just become something that has engulfed our entire lives. I resigned from my government job probably, oh my God, like 6 years ago now. And this is all we do. And it's definitely not because it's a moneymaker, but because we have to do it. There's no other way. Thank you to my wife for helping supporting us while I don't have an actual regular job. You know, we talk about things like catalog resume. What do we do? You know, who's going to do all this research? How are we going to put this all together? You know, it'd be great if we were the Andy Warhol Foundation or something that's a complete machine that was built to do this. But you know, we're doing our best, and I think this is a really great start of a great moving forward for us. Doing these great exhibitions with great people and partners like this, and we'll keep doing it. Hopefully, it'll be something that Dad will be proud of, and yeah, everybody, hopefully.
Well, I just have to say, I'm so honored to know you all and to have had this opportunity. I am trying not to get emotional. I'm so sad that this is closing Sunday, but you all are some of the most amazing people I've ever had the opportunity of working with. And I just really admire what you are doing for your father, for his legacy. Colescott is one of the most, I know I'm probably very famous for this, but in my opinion, one of the most important American painters.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's changed my life in so many ways. The way that I see art, the way that I got interested in art was seeing Colescott here and 30 Americans. So it's just like, your father is such a pivotal figure in lives, but really just an amazing vision. And you all are just amazing to be around, amazing energy, and will always support the work that you are doing for your father. And in general, you guys are very good.
I always said that must be their most important painting. Well, sure enough, when I was looking at the article in the New York Times, this 2 or 3 page article, color photos, there was the museum under construction, and then the next page it had a Smart Wars art, and then there was a George Washington carved across from Delaware. So Robert Colescott's painting is the centerpiece of the Lucas Museum. And it's pretty amazing that they had the foresight to buy that painting and put it there. It's going to be really fun to see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll take a trip down. It's such an amazing. Can I open it to questions? Would you all be willing to take questions from folks? Thanks.
I'm curious where you found this writer who was obsessed with your father. And
He found us. Literally, he was, before we ever met him, he
He
was,
was a high school English teacher.
Yeah.
yeah, and then he taught art history at Davis.
Okay.
Yeah, he also, so yeah, we didn't find him, he found us, and he's a super nice guy and obsessed.
The artwork in their apartment was Robert Colescott's, Joan Brown's, Roy DeForest, and others of that persuasion.
Yep.
Yeah, great collection.
A lot of really great Bay Area artists that he collects, and just seeing the work in his apartment. It's a small apartment, but it's just full. I think he sold off all of his. He convinced his mom and dad to sell off all of their classic art so he could build this wonderful contemporary art collection, mostly of our father's work. And
It was really emotional walking into that apartment. I started crying because I couldn't believe what I was surrounded with Colescott's work and then all his friends' works too.
do we know when the book is coming out? Whatever it's called, bio or whatever.
we don't
Don't know. Still in process.
It's a
rewriting.
I gave him a title. I suggested it could be Life in the Passing Lane.
There you go.
I don't think it's going to use it, but he liked it anyway.
I'll tell him you asked. How's that?
Please. I'm ready to read it.
There were some stories, there were some things I remember as a kid in Egypt that are worth repeating. You know, seeing my parents riding off on the Sahara Desert with this purple sunset and white Arabian stallions. They were galloping across these sands, and as a little kid, seeing them ride off, it was, I don't remember what I was feeling at the moment, but the memory of it is so distinct. And I think while they were doing that, I was being led around on a donkey or something. But I remember we did take a long donkey trip and camels and so on, and I was taught at that time that I couldn't really complain, no whining, and no pointing, and so when I was riding on that donkey, I was getting, my soft white legs were getting chafed on this like saddle thing. I just had to take it. I couldn't complain. There was another time I remember being in a tomb in one of the pyramids, and there were all kinds of holes and different things, vents in the floor, and I had some little toy matchbox truck, and it was either bright yellow or orange, one of the two, and I remember playing with it in the hole, and then whoop, it was gone. That matchbox toy is still there. And running around, there were some places with just tons of columns, and I remember my mother lost sight of me somewhere. So I was somewhere behind a column, and she'd look for me, and then I'd be around another column, and I think it was a moment of panic, but it was okay. A lot of good memories of being in Egypt. I was so young, but I have very fond memories. And Paris was such a good experience. The first school I went to was a French school, and I learned to speak French in no time because I was learning Arabic before. And once I forgot the Arabic, the French was within about a month. I became like a French kid, running around in the streets. Whenever we went back, I would always meet up with the old friends. Some good times, running around in the ruins and pretending I was a knight on the ramparts. In every town, there was always a museum or a church or a cathedral, and we were always there. And on our way south, there was this one little town that had I think it had a funny name like Malea. Malea means bad herb. Bad help, bad herb. But anyway, we stopped there because on the side of the road there was this road sign that said Musée d'Auto. So that was an auto museum, and it was somebody's collection. So we went and paid a few francs and went and saw this guy's car collection. Well, as a kid, that was really impressive to me, and I thought someday I want that. I want to have my own little car museum.
And he's got enough cars to fill 2 of them.
So I'm kind of living out that. That's true. Living out the fantasy of having a car museum and racing cars when I can on the weekends. And Robert Colescott was a bit of a car nut, having to do with car designs. Like the Avanti was such an amazing design, and he had the AMC AMX, which was a very iconic Rambler product, and they're very rare and unusual and beautiful. And so I have some of those. And so Dad always was very supportive. He used to take me to the Oakland Roadster show for the customs and the hot rods, and my mother would take me to the racetrack at Laguna Seca. So those are huge influences. But it also comes from travel, because when we were traveling, we could either go by train, plane, or bus. None of those things were that great compared to a car. Because in a car, you were free to go anywhere you wanted at any time. And so as a kid, traveling by car seemed like the best thing. So I drove up here from the San Francisco Bay Area, driving all night, and so I enjoy road trips still to this day.
There you go.
Yeah. Those are some other memories, of growing up with Colescott.
Any other questions before we close?
So, I was listening to you when you were talking about all the people that you had met and stuff. And
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
She said that she was listening about all the people that he met, like
Vincent Price.
Vincent
stuff.
Price, yeah.
Did he inspire your dad to make any art or any art? And that's one. And two, did they ever collaborate to put any horror art together for like Halloween and stuff to see if they can scare you free?
That's a good question.
So,
More about Vincent Price. Did you think he had any more connections with him?
I have no clue. I think he was there, he was like on a shopping trip, right? He was looking for something to buy, and I was just, that's fencing the price.
But quite a few well-known names have purchased Robert Colescott work, and I don't know if it'd be appropriate to drop a bunch of names, but you would know there's a lot of folks that own his work, and even a blind artist bought some of his work. So
Cooper bought some of that. And we all.
I'm not the blind artist.
and this, does somebody more questions?
Well, I was just going to say it's just, and I'm the grandson of Warrington, but I was just going to say.
One of our cousins.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's like really fascinating and interesting that you three can tell from the perspective of a child growing up and a boy, your experiences at different times in his life as he developed, you know, and I just think it's like an extremely unique and fascinating family situation, and it's just really moving. So it's just an absolute, you know, pleasure to be able to hear you guys talk about that. So, yeah.
Do you have any memories of your grandfather?
I remember sitting at the kids' table. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I remember when I was I was exactly 11 years old. And my parents had a party. And, you know, all these people at this party, there were a lot of World War II vets there, and they knew how to party. And my dad had borrowed this punch bowl from a neighbor. And I still remember that guy's name for some reason. And it was made out of an observation dome out of a bomber, right? So it was a big bowl, basically. And it was a hard liquor punch, and I'm sitting on the stairs watching all these crazy adults doing their, having a great time. And I knew it had something to do with what was in that punch. So I went downstairs, and they had these little, like, 6 or 8 ounce glasses, and it was kind of sweet. And I drank probably 7 or 8 of these. So that it was like the future was foretold in that moment. I got sick. I fell in love. There was a young girl there named Malden Wilson. I still remember her. She was a daughter of a friend of my dad's. And she held a cold compress on my forehead as I puked into the toilet. And this was a Saturday. And Monday, I was still too sick to go to school. I called up my buddy across the street, Rob Worley, and I said, Rob, I'm drunk. No way, dude. And so he says, meet me outside. So I met him out front, and he goes, you're drunk. So Dad was not a happy camper. And I remember after the hangover was over and I'd gone back to school that following Friday, he said, let's go up to your mother's workroom and we're gonna have a conversation. And he walked in the door and he goes, this is gonna hurt you much more than it ever hurt me. And he gave me a couple of whacks, right? And that's how I remember that. That's a drinker's miracle right there. I literally poisoned myself. Is that a good story?
That's a good story.
Is it better than the new model that I saw?
That's a great story.
One important memory I have is being in the bathtub and Dad would scrub the head. I don't know why he thought that was a good thing, but a super scrub job on my head. And but I remember, I think I asked him something about God or the Bible or something. And he told me, well, the Bible is a book of teachings, and you can take from it what you will. And I always thought that was very kind of open and matter of fact, and letting me figure it out.
So, in that vein, and then I'll shut up for the rest of the evening. There's, my mother was Catholic, and I mean to the point of icons on the wall, kind of Catholic, right? And crying when Pope whatever died, kind of Catholic. And she was, so Dad, one evening, I think it was a Friday night, and packed our brother and myself up and into the 57 Ford. What a lame car. and off we went, and we had our little bow ties and vests on, right? Little sweater vests. And we went to Temple. Went in and we go in there and we sit through the whole thing, with the cantor and the whole 9 yards. I had no clue what was really going on, but Dad, we got out of there and he goes, there's more than one way to do this thing. And after that, sometime later, he took us to a Buddhist ceremony. We went to a Hindi ceremony, and he had this open-minded attitude about life. You believe what you want to believe kind of attitude, but just realize there's other ways that you get to the same place. So I think that speaks volumes as to the man he was.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there you go. I'm done.
Well, we don't have any last questions. I would love for us to give these lovely